41 Minutes of Heaven, we call the D1Baseball.com podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. I am, in fact, the pride of the Newtown Edgemont Little League, hashtag Go Green Machine. I am joined by the great Aaron Fitt. Fitzy, you are at the beach. Just share that beach vibe with us, please.
Windy, Runes. Just doing a little midweek maintenance out here at the beach, but be back. We're back to the Triangle this weekend. We got a big slate, ACC opening weekend coming up next week, so it's going to be.
How far is the beach from where you live? That's important information. Couple hours?
Yeah, probably 3 hours. A little haul.
Oh man, gosh, not Arizona. We are not 3 hours from a beach. It's not in play for Arizona.
Right there. Come on.
The lake. That is with the London Bridge, the stolen bridge. Oh, gosh. Very good. Kendall J. Rogers is on the call, the pride of the Republic of East Texas. Hey, how are you, KR?
We're the Republic of East Texas. Are we separatists now? East Texas has separated from Texas?
Well, maybe you guys are a subsidiary or something. I don't know. How do you guys do it down there?
I don't know.
How you doing? Triple headers. Let's go.
I was just talking to Fitt last night. I've seen 16 teams in the last 3 weeks. I think that's enough. I think that's enough for a couple of weeks.
Does Stitch count as one of those 16 teams, or he's the 17th team?
He's the 17th team. It was great to see Stitch.
Yes,
it's always good. It's always good to get Stitch out of California, get him in the state of Texas. So it was good seeing him. We got to see UCLA over the weekend. The Bruins. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but the Bruins didn't look great opening day at Minute Maid. I might actually been a little bit too critical about the Bruins offense, but as the weekend kind of progressed, I started to like their team a lot. So saw a lot of good baseball, and if you're an LSU fan, a lot of not so good baseball on Sunday night. Ouch.
Hashtag weeps. Boys, tonight's podcast is brought to us by the D1 Players Society. I want to encourage everyone to check those guys out. They are doing incredible work, writing podcasts. I've really enjoyed their stuff. So we are super pleased to be sponsored by the D1PS, if you will. So we're getting Brenton's in there. What's he saying? It looks snarky. What's he saying about Tulane? Go ahead, KR.
Oh, is he already on the
Listen, Brenton, listen.
Thank you.
Not 4 days ago, I wrote a glowing piece about Tulane and about how the job they've done, and you got to make a pick. You got to flip a coin and make a
That's
pick.
Right.
And in this case, it was a vote of confidence in Mississippi State. We thought they'd figure it out. They did not figure it out. Tulane is good. I mean, we wouldn't have written about them in the Rapsodo Team on the Rise feature. We didn't think they were good. But Mississippi State is the defending national champs, and you lose your ace early on there. That changes the complexion of things. I think Mississippi State is in a very precarious spot right now, guys. I don't know how you feel, but we'll see what happens with this Landon Sims thing. I don't know if there's any news on that, Kendall, but that's huge. I mean, obviously, that's
no news on that yet. But I'm with you. I just think when you look at this team overall, I think I've expected a lot more out of their position guys so far. I get that they had one game against Tulane where they just went buck wild offensively, but for the most part, I just don't feel like this team's been in a great groove, whether it's offensively or on the mound, and certainly without Landon Sims. It's hard to feel very confident about their pitching. Let's be honest, guys.
They just haven't found I feel like we've had this conversation over chats, right? Like there's so much talent on this roster. That's what's so mind-boggling about this thing. Yeah. It's like we know there's talent. So many of these position players are the same exact dudes, but hey, like a couple guys leave and now people have to take on different roles, and for whatever reason, the recipe is not working yet this year. But obviously they still have talent. The Landon Sims thing, you just said it. I mean, that's, gosh, you could make an argument he's the best pitcher in the country. So it's like it's a big loss.
Yeah, if you want to look at recent history, I mean, like we're pretty concerned about them. But I mean, recent history would suggest two ACC teams had losing records, 8 games under 500, and ended the season in Omaha. So I mean, things look pretty bleak now. But I mean, like you said, they've got talent to kind of turn things around. But you just kind of wonder if, let's say Landon Sims is out for the year. I mean, anybody who watched that video would probably assume that it's not great. But let's say he's out for the year. That's a really, really tough blow for a team that's already kind of wobbly.
Yeah. Hey, let's just dive into this topic, and we'll come back to some other stuff. So here's the thing in favor of Mississippi State. guys, I don't think the SEC West is what we thought it was. It seems gettable this year. Like, I mean, if you made me pick the best team in that division, our rankings would say Ole Miss. That's what I would say. I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
Like the Ole Miss, the SEC West feels vulnerable to me.
No, it does. I mean, you look at Arkansas. I think we would all agree. Like, I actually still feel pretty good about Arkansas. I feel like Arkansas just hasn't gotten in a groove offensively, but they've got all the pieces to do so. I mean, like Brady Slavens isn't going to struggle all year long. I think Peyton Stovall is going to get rolling. They've got Big Game Bob. I mean, they're going to be fine offensively. We'll see what happens pitching wise. LSU, and we'll talk about them a little bit more. But I mean, I'm a little concerned about them, guys. I mean, their defense was atrocious on Sunday. Ty Floyd decided to throw pretty much all fastballs against Texas. That didn't work out so well. And then Grant Taylor, I actually really liked the young freshman. He was up to 96 last night, but LSU had a quick trigger. They went to the bullpen just constantly. So I have some concerns about them. Texas A&M is wobbly right now. Auburn's one of those teams we didn't talk about a lot in the preseason, but they're actually off to a nice start. Sonny DeChara has really done a nice job offensively. So maybe Auburn is that team that kind of makes that surprise leap. But right now, Ole Miss, Runes, I agree. They were kind of tested over the weekend against UCF, but they win 9-1 in the series finale. We'll kind of see what they do without Kevin Graham the next 4 weeks, though. It sounds like he's out for 4 weeks of the fracture.
Fitzy, what's your take on that division?
I think Kendall's right. I mean, listen, it's too early, certainly for any kind of. I'm going to use the P word. I mean, but that would be ridiculous. I mean, there's just so much talent in that division. It's a long season. We're 3 weeks in. Sometimes it takes some time for these teams to gel, and I do believe that LSU's defense might be a concern all the way through. I mean, we're already concerned about it heading into the season, and so far, that seems like that concern is valid. And so that's something they'll have to figure out. And they're pitching too, but they're going to hit a ton. I still believe Mississippi State's going to hit too. And they have hit some, but let's give Tulane some credit here. I mean,
yes, good point.
These guys, I mean, the comeback they had on Saturday, I think they were down. They were down 5 runs or something like that, more than that.
Yeah, it was like 10-2 or something. It was crazy. Yeah. It was a crazy score.
They were down 8-2 at one point,
and they come back. They get 5 runs in the 7th. And they win it in extra innings. I mean, team's just showing a lot of heart right now, and there's some firepower too there, and it's you got some nice proven pieces. Bennett Lee and Louis Aviles and Ethan Groff is a veteran guy, so like he's kind of figured it out and helped that thing. Kick that offense into gear, and Brady Hebert, the transfers has been a difference maker for him. I like the lineup. I like the athleticism. I like the balance and the length. I'm not convinced that they have the horses on the mound long term. We'll see. That's something for me. Like they're relying heavily on freshman arms, and there will be growing pains. I mean, there just always are with freshmen, but so far so good. And Dylan Carmouche was the big story right after the first 2 weeks, and he kind of got it handed to him on Saturday. They won anyway, because the bullpen has come up pretty big for him.
Yeah, speaking of Ethan Groff, guys, he gets that walk off in game 2. You're talking about a guy who hit 190 last year, and I think he's hitting over 500 right now. So Ethan Groff, one of the better stories in college baseball right now, at least from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, you guys know I'm a huge Travis Jewett fan, obviously. Full disclosure, worked with him at Arizona State, so it's like biased. Can I borrow your sign, Fitzy? I need my own version of it. But I will say this. The Tulane program has an upward trajectory, right? 3rd in the league the year before the pandemic, and after 2 rough transition years, then they're 15-2 in the pandemic shortened season, and that we don't get to see that play out. And then last year, it's easy to forget, going into the final weekend of conference play, Tulane was 17-6 in the American and just loses 4 games to Cincinnati and kind of nail in the coffin. But still, they kind of right themselves and they go 3-2 in the conference tournament. It wasn't like they laid down in the conference tournament, but there just wasn't enough of a resume there. So, yeah, I think it's a really good point, Fitzy. I'll wrap it with this, guys. It's just so weird. This is not what the SEC does. The SEC just crushes people and gets healthy in the non-con, and then they beat each other up in the conference. Now we have all these SEC teams that are going to try and get healthy in the SEC. It's like I've never seen it before, and so man, I mean, it's going to be compelling. So
and yet you've got teams like Kentucky and Auburn that have been kind of, I guess you call them surprises to some degree, right? Teams that were picked outside regionals heading into the season. I mean, those are teams that don't need to get right in SEC play. They're already right. And so we'll see how that translates over to conference play. So it's just the dynamic is a little flipped because, like you said, all those teams stuffed in the top 10 in the preseason have had, aside from Ole Miss, have had really some mixed results.
Yep.
Yeah, and in the Eastern, the top of the East in the SEC looks great. I mean, Vanderbilt goes out to the islands, and that's always a difficult chore to go out to the islands. They played really well out there. I think Carter Hogan might have had a no-hitter going I think it was the 6th or 7th in the middle game of that series.
One of these days we're going to get that name right. Carter Holton.
Holton. Did I say Hogan?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of
Hogan's the kid that's at South Carolina now that transferred from Vandy, right?
Yeah. Apparently, I said Jake Rucker instead of Jordan Beck. So
Jake Rucker was a great player, though. I don't think we can revisit him enough. I love Jake Rucker.
How about speaking of the SEC, so we talked about Vandy real quick. I mean, Florida gets a big series win at Miami. We kind of tabbed that series as one that last year, we talked about how Miami or how Florida's bullpen just melted down against Miami and how they kind of set the foundation for what was a little bit of a tumultuous season. They go on the road, get pressed, and then look, frankly, guys, they look pretty dominant on Sunday against Miami. So Florida with a big series win, and Tennessee, guys. I was buying stock in those guys before the season, but boy, I really, really like Tennessee's club. I mean, they're really deep offensively at Shriners this past weekend. They had guys like Christian Moore, who's a talented young hitter, Christian Scott come off the bench with some big hits. Even Blake Berg came in the 8th inning of the last game, hits an absolute bomb into the second deck in the outfield. And then you look at their pitching. I'll tell you what, I try to temper my expectations on freshman pitchers, but it's going to be hard to find two better freshman pitchers than Chase Burns and Drew Beam. I mean, Burns is up to 98, fellas, 86, 89 cutter that was just devastating to right-handed hitters. And then Drew Beam, in the final game was 92, 94, bumping 95 with a pretty good slider and a great frame. So all of a sudden, Tennessee's pitching staff's, looking like it's stable in the weekend rotation. And by the way, they've got a lot of options, from a bullpen standpoint right now.
Kendall, I got 2 questions for you on Tennessee.
Sure.
I watched a little bit of it on TV, and it's striking how talented they are. It's striking how physical and athletic they are. So my 2 questions, I'll just give you both questions. One is I'm still confused on who their infield is. Like Lipsius at first base seems settled. I think Trey Lipscomb's playing third, but maybe he's bopping around. But the other 2 guys, it feels like this rotation of Stevenson, Moore, Ortega. I'm curious about that. And then the Dollander, who's got crazy good stuff, as you mentioned. And then, like Baylor turned it into a track meet. Like is not that SEC teams tend to run like crazy. I don't think that's a real thing in the league. But is the running game like a possible torpedo for Tennessee, or are you not concerned?
Well, it was only an issue against Chase Dollander, and a user brought that up. But I don't know if people realized it, but in that game against Baylor, Dollander, in that game, Dollander had 6 bases stolen on him in the first inning.
Crazy.
The NCAA record's 8. I think St. John's might have done it back in like 1993 or something like that. But anyway, 6 stolen bases. You can't have that happen. But again, I mean, the stuff was really good from Dollander. I mean, he was up to 95 with a pretty good slider. So, I mean, they've got 3 guys with good stuff. It's interesting when you look at their infield. One thing that Tony mentioned after yesterday's game was like all of our roles, all of our positions are up for sale. Like right now, like we're not sold on pretty much anybody in any position. All those jobs are wide open. And he's right. I mean, they've got 12 or 13 guys deep of position players. And I'll be very curious to see how things shake out over the next, week as they get ready for SEC play. But they were, to me, were the biggest surprise at Shriners. I thought they were very good.
Hey Fitzy, let me. You saw a bunch of stuff this weekend, but I want to, before we get to that, I want to, while we're kind of jumping around teams, let's talk about Virginia. Let's just get it out of the way. So they're 11-0. You guys know I went and calculated the average winning percentage of their opponents. So I just basically, like, if you have a 200 winning percentage and you played Virginia 3 times, I included that 3 times. So I just did the average winning percentage of their 11 games. It's 330. It's bad. Like, I'm not saying that those are bad programs they played. Scheduling is what it is. But, it's like they've played the Orioles 11 times, right? Like, they've played teams that are off to horrific starts who are not, your name brand programs. So it does make it hard to evaluate Virginia. That said, there are some things that look different to me than I anticipated. Let me start with you, Fitzy. What's your take on Virginia's start at this point?
I mean, look, scheduling isn't rocket science, Runes. I mean, like,
right, it's fair.
No offense to Cornell and Penn State and Bellarmine, but like, you're scheduling these kinds of teams, you know what you're getting. Okay?
Right.
Like, you're not, and okay, look, I mean, there's a different school of thought. You're in a tough conference. You want to rack up wins, build confidence early in the season. Fine. That's fine. Maybe that's the best approach for your team long term. There's people who like to be tested early against really good competition. And there's teams like to build confidence early. I'm not making a judgment on which one is better, but I'm saying if you want to be in the top 25, you need quality wins.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's something that matters to you as a fan, that is why you're not ranked. You don't have any quality wins. None. I mean, it's just, it's just not there. And so, sure, if they had started the season in the top 25, they would still be in. They're undefeated. They wouldn't have dropped. But we had questions we wanted to see answered from this team heading into the year. So far, so good with the pitching, but like, let's see what happens when we, face some better competition. So far, I mean, certainly we wanted to see Savino take a step and become a legit ace. Do that. So far, he's been able to dominate overwhelmed competition, and we wanted to see Brandon Eek establish himself as a starter, as a workhorse guy. He's never really done it. So far, so good. 5 innings, 1 run on Sunday against Penn State. He's had a nice start to the year. Those were key factors. The infield was a key factor. How those freshmen would gel. Griffin O'Farrell at shortstop, and he's been really good, by the way. They hit him in the leadoff spot, I think, and he had like 4 hits on Sunday. I mean, he seems like he's a really good player. But so they're answering some questions that we had, but they were legitimate questions. And hey, if they go on the road and win a series at Duke to start ACC play, they'll be ranked. It's that simple. I mean, but you got to beat somebody.
Yeah, I think the other thing I'll add to that, Fitzy, is that it wasn't like Virginia won 50 games last year.
No.
They went to Omaha, but it was the rockiest of rides, right? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, they were a 3 seed. I'm almost certain they were a 3 seed in that regional.
Yes, they were. Yeah, absolutely they were. And
yeah,
by the end of the year, they wound up playing their way into the regional pretty comfortably there. But I mean, like, it was touch and go right up until like the last week of the regular season. And and again, the key arms from that team are gone, right? Like, we've talked about it a bunch, but like, your All-America ace Abbott is gone. Griff McGarry, who came on so strong in the postseason, he's gone. I mean, some key bullpen pieces are gone. Left side of your infield's gone. Like, they had a lot of question marks. I mean, this program is very good. They reload, but I mean, I'm still not. I need to see it. I need to see it against a little bit better competition, and then they'll be ranked.
Yep. Do you guys think that? Oh, go ahead, Kendall. You go.
No, I was going to say it's going to be really interesting to see, not only Virginia this weekend at Duke. I mean, that's a big series for both teams. I'm not sure what to expect for either of those teams. Duke lost that series against Baylor and looked a little iffy against Bucknell. But also Wake Forest guys. I mean, they're 11-0. The next 2 weekends they get Florida State and Georgia Tech. We're going to find out everything we need to know about the Demon Deacons the next 2 weeks.
I feel like the ACC is the conference I know the least about right now. Like, their schedules have been so disparate. And I can't wait for league play to start this week, because I feel like it seems like a super deep league. I think it's going to be a really fun season. It clearly feels like Pitt and BC are kind of behind, but everybody else feels pretty viable to me, unless I'm missing somebody. So that part's really exciting.
Well, who impressed me over the weekend and just kind of following the action was Clemson, who Aaron saw on Sunday. It just seemed like, outside of a close win on Friday, it seemed like they were dominant for the most part against South Carolina.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was clear who the better team was. And you have to acknowledge that South Carolina, they're not healthy on the mound. I mean, the reason to like that team in the preseason, if you liked South Carolina, was was the pitching. In particular, Sanders and Bosnick 1-2 punch, and then James Hicks, the JUCO transfer, as a third guy. Like that stood out as potentially the best weekend rotation in the league heading into the season. And now Hicks is out for the year. Bosnick hasn't thrown a pitch yet. He's still working his way back. He's a question mark. Sanders has been great. But the rest of the staff, it's like they've had other injuries too, of course. Guys that they lost, Jack Mahoney and Jackson Phipps, key arms that they were expecting to really be linchpins of this team this year. I mean, they're out for the year. So I mean, like, I just, and there's a lot of freshmen in the lineup. And Michael Braswell's a stud at shortstop. He's a real guy. But it's not like they've got a ton of firepower. It's just they're really fighting it. We'll see what this coaching staff is made of, because you had Clemson this week. Now you get Texas, and then you got Vanderbilt. So,
yeah, that's tough. Hey, Fitzy, let me ask you. You saw a little bit of. Did you see how much of Georgia Tech did you see?
I saw the first 2 games.
Yeah. Tell us about that. What are your takeaways?
Well, I was there for the 2 games that Georgia Tech won, and they looked really good. The first thing I guess that I would say is Georgia Tech, as we've talked about a lot over the past few years, hasn't been a great defensive program, right? I mean, that's been a consistent
fair
Achilles heel for this club, and they played great defense. At least for the 2 games I was there, they were flawless. And Georgia, which is a pitching and defense program, is always like top 5 in the country in fielding percentage. It seems like they didn't play clean defense, so that was kind of weird. But we knew Georgia Tech was explosive offensively. I mean, I've been saying all year, I think it's right there with Ole Miss is probably, a couple of the best offenses in the country. LSU, obviously. I mean, a few of those SEC West ones have that kind of upside, but Georgia Tech's, I mean, it's serious firepower. It's veteran guys. You've got Jenkins and Compton and, Kevin Parada and, all these players that have produced. Stephen Reed's got huge power. You got, Danny Hall's son down there, Colin, in the 7-hole who can hurt you. But you throw Chandler Simpson into that mix, just a speed merchant who's just such a dynamic player. I mean, you can't take your eyes off him, Rooms. It's 80 speed. He knows how to use it. He handles a bat. He uses all fields. He's just such a constant factor, like Enrique Bradfield for Vanderbilt, who also plays shortstop and does a solid job there. So I thought that offensively they were who we thought they were. I thought that Chance Huff is a revelation on Fridays for Georgia Tech, the total game changer. That was the biggest question mark for this team heading into the year. The reason that they were ranked in the 18 or something in the preseason.
What's he like, Fitzy? Is it like ace stuff, or is it just like pitchability, or what is Huff all about?
It was ace stuff, better stuff certainly than I'd ever seen from him before. It was up to 97 in the first, and he held 92, 95 for 7 innings, and he located with it, which is something that he has not been able to do so much in the past. It was 4 pitches, short slider, a little breaking ball, occasional changeup. I mean, but the pitchability, the toughness, he's just come leaps and bounds, because that was what held him back in the past, was the strike throwing. So having that guy as someone who was really just an afterthought in the fall. I mean, if you go back and read that fall report, he's mentioned as like, he might be the 12th pitcher mentioned in that fall report as somebody that could be a factor in the bullpen, right? And all of a sudden, 2 months later, he's a Friday stud. I mean, like, that's a total game changer for a team that didn't have proven starting pitching heading into the season. And so that was certainly key. Maxwell is the other key. And it was kind of the typical Zach Maxwell experience we've seen in the past. 6 walks in 3 innings, but he struck out like 7 guys and didn't give up any runs. And so, I mean, they need him to be more efficient to get deeper into the games, though. Like, he's got stuff to get himself out of trouble, but he needs to get deeper into games. It's a huge key for that team. So overall takeaway, Georgia Tech, I thought, was really good. I didn't see Georgia's win on Sunday. I still believe Georgia, with their pitching and defense will be a factor. Their experience in the lineup. I don't think there's a lot of star power and explosiveness in that offense, besides Corey Collins. But I do think those are nice winning veteran players that have a chip on their shoulder, and I think they're going to still have a really good year. I still feel like the team that can finish above 500 in the SEC. And I know our friend Chris Burke might not agree with me.
Chris from Louisville.
We've had a little bit of dialogue on that.
Yeah.
But I'm still in on Georgia.
Hey, Kendall, but will I ask Aaron a follow-up question? Can you block our man, red checkmark over there? Do you see him in there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
I think I met that guy in Las Vegas. He was handing out flyers outside of the restaurants. Hey, Fitzy, did I see that Jonathan Cannon made 2 errors? Oh, yes. We're highlighting him. Did I see that Jonathan Cannon was 2 of the errors that Georgia made?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, he didn't feel his position very well. One of them was an errant pickoff throw, and that's the Chandler Simpson factor. I mean, I wrote about this on Friday. Like, he forces you into making mistakes because you got to try to keep him close. And so he's on second base, and you throw one away, and he's on third base. One batter later, and there's a chopper right to the third baseman, Josh McAllister, who's a really good player, but it's a contact play, and Simpson is going. And like he knows he's got to rush it, right? And so the throw's a little high, and Simpson gets in there. Like there's so many little incidents of that where he just things that don't show up in the box score, but like it's a fielder's choice in the box score. But I mean, like that his speed caused that mistake. And it's just you have a guy like that, it's just huge. But anyway, Cannon, he's such a good athlete. I mean, he repeats his delivery. It's 4 real good pitches. Still really like that guy. Still think he's a first-team All-American caliber ace, and just kind of, give credit to Georgia Tech. They wore him out some. They jumped on him in the first, and they got him again in the middle innings, but they're just a great offense.
Hey, Aaron, I wanted to bring up something. You talked about the atmosphere at Georgia Tech. Russ Chandler, McNeese Ballpark, is not usually one of those places that you talk about like amazing atmospheres, but it seemed like the atmosphere on Friday night at Russ Chandler was outstanding, right?
Yeah, best I've ever seen it at Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
No question about it. It was hopping, and just it had that electricity. It was jam packed. I mean, it's Georgia and Georgia Tech, like it's that is usually where they get the really big crowds anyway. But I don't know if I'd been there for Friday night for that series, so maybe it's happened before. But boy, I was impressed, and they've done work with the ballpark, and there's kind of that stuff down the left field line with the new building with like the balconies hanging over, and people are hanging off the balconies, and it was cool. And then then on Sunday I go to Clemson, and like they had the largest crowd in Doug Kingsmore Stadium history there on a Sunday.
Oh wow!
So
what was that?
That was cool too. It was like 6,600 people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hey, KR, I have a really important Shriners College Classic question for you. You ready?
Sure.
What snacks did you bring to the yard each day? I'd really like to dive into the snack game.
So I've gotten very responsible this year. I had, for the most part, I had like a turkey kind of like brown rice quinoa concoction.
Self-made, or do we purchase that at Buc-ee's?
Self-made. I made it at my house. It was like a ground turkey, like taco meat.
Holy
with
cow.
Like a quinoa brown rice.
In a Tupperware bowl, please.
Aaron would be very proud of me.
I am proud of you.
Some pecans. But here's my thing. So we talk about different things we do at ballparks sometimes. So one thing I will always do at the ballpark is when I walk in, whether it's Baum Stadium or Don Sanders at Sam Houston, like I like smell things. So like I want to smell and see if like they're making fresh popcorn. If I don't smell popcorn when I walk in the ballpark, I know it's that junk out of a bag.
Interesting.
But if I can smell it, I want to try it. So some people like try pretzels and stuff like that. Like I'm always one of those guys. I want to try the popcorn, and kudos to the Astros because they had fresh popcorn every day.
I like it. Kendall, I don't know if you recognize that person in the chat is questioning who actually authored the quinoa bowl. So
I don't know. You shouldn't let your wife watch the live stream. You're getting called out.
I don't know what she's doing on here.
That's right. I love that you did that though. You are a dedicated bring your own food to the ballpark person, and I am here for that.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of, we talked about the atmosphere at Russ Chandler on Friday, but how about the atmosphere at Minute Maid on Saturday night? I mean, obviously.
Oh, that was awesome.
With LSU 4 hours away and Texas 2.5 hours away, to be expected, you're going to have a big crowd. But I think the last time they played in Houston, I think they had 16 or 17,000. Guys, they had 25,000 people at Minute Maid Park on Saturday night. The whole bottom level was full. Most of the club level was full. And from what I actually heard from several people is that the Astros didn't actually plan for more than that to come. So they had to turn people away because they didn't have ushers to actually run the other sections. So they could have had, I don't know how many more they could have had in there, but they actually ended up turning people away because they didn't have enough people for the crowd. So that was a great spectacle for college baseball, especially given the fact it was on MLB Network.
Hey, if you had to break down the percentage of fans, KR, like what was the spread? Was it more Texas, more LSU?
No, it was, LSU probably had 60%.
Wow.
It was impressive. They travel really well to that tournament. It's a big reason why, Jay Johnson's committed to it now, but, LSU's committed to going there every 2 years. It just makes a lot of sense. And I think it's in 2 years. I think they play the Cajuns at Minute Maid Park in that tournament. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. It has been the atmospheres this year. When you were talking about that, it just immediately took me back to opening night at Grand Canyon is a wax school. They had 5,200 people at and again, they have a gorgeous facility. But hey, let's keep bopping around teams. KR, I'm going to stay with you. I got to eyeball Texas State this weekend. I had never seen them. Where is San Marcos, by the way?
It's like 30 miles south of Austin. So yeah,
like Central Texas, is that what we're calling that?
Yeah,
what is that?
You call it like the Hill Country, Central Texas. So you just take I-35 south of Austin. It's 30 minutes from downtown Austin. So
called the Republic of Central Texas.
No, they're not incorporated.
Yeah, there's separatist area.
They didn't fill out the paperwork.
Yeah, right. You know what? That's a really interesting program. So they've actually got a lot of resources. It's a school that continues to get larger and larger. There's a lot of money being pumped in that school. They've got great recruiting grounds. They've had success in the past under Ty Harrington. But, guys, if you remember, Texas State was the Sun Belt favorite going into last year, and they were abysmal. And it's actually kind of funny. I was talking to Stephen Trout. I've known him forever. Of course, played at TCU. But I was talking to Stephen Trout, and I didn't get time to get over there in the fall. And I told him, I said, "Hey, man, so great job so far this year. My bad. Sorry I didn't get there in the fall." He's like, "Honestly, we didn't deserve to have anybody come see us in the fall. Like, we last year was embarrassing for this program." And so I think that kind of gives you an inside look behind the curtain of like the attitude of that program coming into the season. And as you saw, they're an older group and they're really good. Like they were supposed to be like this last year. They're just a year behind, but that's a really solid ball club.
He threw us off the scent there, though, with that comment. Because I remember when you said that, it was before the season started, and I was thinking, oh, well, I guess they're not going to be very good then. But like maybe it's like you said, kind of that chip on your shoulder, something to prove thing that works for teams. Like, hey, listen, I guarantee you, the people of Virginia and UCLA and Southern Miss, and they're loving the fact that we're not giving them love. Just one more piece of fuel for the fire, and so. I think that sometimes there's something to be said for lying in the weeds, and especially coming off a bad year. You got those guys are probably, like you said, it's an older group that has accomplished things in the past, and they probably want to prove something.
Hey, here's the other thing.
Curious. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say the other thing that does, Fitzy, is it keeps players in your program because they didn't get drafted, because they didn't. Bad teams don't get scouted as much, and it's harder to put up crazy numbers on a bad team, and now we have. The draft is smaller, but I'll tell you what I saw with Texas State guys. First of all, let's talk uniforms. They have these kind of mustard yellow uniforms, and they all had the maroon socks pulled up. Every player socks up. It was gorgeous. Like, it was really a strong look. And then, so you mentioned their age, Kendall. If my math is right, they had 6 of their 9 starters. 6 of them were fifth-year seniors. And you mentioned they're pretty deliberate in how they recruit KR. Like, it looked like it was a ton of Texas JUCO guys. But, now these kids are 23, 24 years old. They were very right-handed. They just played solid. Like, you hit them a ground ball, it was an out. You hit a fly ball, it was an out. They threw strikes. You had to they do try to steal bases a little bit. Here's my favorite part of their club, though. They have 2 right-handed relievers who I love, the Tristans. So Tristan Dixon wears number 2. He looks like a shortstop. He throws from the side, and he's really rough on right-handers, third base side of the rubber, and it's like crossfire central. And Arizona right now is extremely right-handed. They had 1 left-handed hitter in there. It was Casagrande, and he's really struggling. He was not confident at all. And so he's their 7th and 8th inning guy. And then Tristan Stivers has this wicked slider. Like, I didn't get a velocity on it, but it's like this little tight slider. He's throwing it to lefties, righties. Every pitch, it's coming. You can't do anything about it. Just one of those like tip, we see that in college baseball sometimes, a reliever with just a nasty out pitch. And it's like one time through the order, you got no chance. And so, again, if you're right-handed and you're facing Texas State, they're a real handful. I mean, they were, man, like, you don't want to see them in a super regional. I'm telling you, especially if you have a right-handed lineup.
So I'm kind of curious, Runes, with the Sun Belt teams, I typically am always kind of concerned about the weekend starters. Like, do you feel like the starting pitching was good enough to win a regional?
Like, that's a great question. I would say it's not what I saw. I would say, like, their starting pitching, I'll give them this compliment. They weren't the issue, right? Like they just kept the game intact. And so, Levi Wells is a famous guy, and like this seems to be a great landing spot for him. Like he looks very different than the rest of their roster, if that makes sense. More famous and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, they've put together a really nice team. They're really old, and if you don't beat them, they're happy to just play solid and take the victory. So they were that was fun to watch. Boys, let me just, I think a natural segue there is Gonzaga. What do you guys got on Gonzaga? I've got opinions, but I'm curious your guys' thoughts on them.
I want to hear yours because you're far more educated than we are. You've actually seen them with your own eyes. We followed them from afar, but mostly living vicariously through you on the Zags. It sounds like the weekend rotation is legit.
Well, I mean, yeah, let's start there. So first of all, I think if you're just a person that's like not super immersed in college baseball, Gonzaga is the best program in the WCC, and I don't think that's debatable. And it's a Southern Conference, and they're in Canada basically, right? Like it's Spokane, Washington. So Mark Backtoff and that staff have done an unbelievable job. They have finished first or second in the WCC in 9 of the last 12 years. Think about how crazy that is when you're in a league with San Diego, Loyola Marymount, Pepperdine. It's now BYU. The WCC is really having a heck of a year. But you mentioned it, Fitzy. So Gabe Hughes, stud. William Kempner, up to 100 this weekend. Tristan Vreeling was their high leverage closer last year. He's up to 95. So my thing on Gonzaga is their position player group's new. They're solid. They're not outstanding. But if you don't expose their lack of depth, they can beat you, as Oklahoma State just learned. And now they have 6 straight wins on the road against Oklahoma State and Fullerton. So same thing. This is where regionals, if Gonzaga gets in the loser's bracket at a regional, they got a big problem. Big problem. They stay clean in the winner's bracket. Tristan Vreeling is not who you want to see in Game 6 of a regional. That's a really good arm. So again, another team that's super intriguing to me.
Yeah, I mean, they had Vreeling had 13 strikeouts of 5 innings today against the Oklahoma State lineup. That's not exactly bad.
Yeah. Although, Kendall, to that point, Fitzy, those 19 strikeouts spooked me a little bit today. Like, what is that part of? Because I'm with Kendall. Like, I'm still all wagered in on Oklahoma State. Like, I still think it's an Omaha team, but man, those 19 strikeouts spooked me a little today. What do you got on that, Fitzy?
And I'll say this. I mean, one of the things that I probably liked most about Oklahoma State, probably the thing I liked most about Oklahoma State in the preseason, was actually the pitching, which is not usually what you think about. Typically, you think of them as a home run hitting program, but I mean, they pitched well this weekend. That wasn't the problem. I mean, they lost 4-3, 2-1, 2-1. They didn't hit but it's a team that has had some swing and miss issues in recent years. This weekend, you're facing premium guys, and they struck out 13 times, I think, in the first game, and 19 times today on Monday when we record this podcast, 12 times in the middle game. I mean, there's swing and miss, and there's going to be with some of those guys. But if you're Caden Trinkle, guys like that, you got to use your speed. You got to use your speed and put. I mean, it's one thing if you're Nolan McLean, and there's going to be swing and miss with Nolan McLean. We know that, but there's power. But your little critters, you got to put the ball in play.
Yep, I agree. Hey, Kendall, can I revert to UCLA for a second?
Sure.
So, very impressive weekend. You mentioned that. Is that a club with Omaha upside, or maybe not this year? Like this group of players has Omaha upside in their career, but this year maybe that's a little rich.
If they can get healthy, maybe. I mean, if they can get the Karras brothers back, I think
right. They're not even having those guys. Holy crap!
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
Neither one of those guys are playing right now. I think Jared. They told me Jared was out about a week or two. Then Kyle's out 2 to 3 more weeks. So they're going to get those 2 guys back. And the thing that's really interesting about UCLA is, for me, this is their starting point. I think they're just going to continue to get better and better as those young players get more innings, get more at bats. But the thing that stood out to me about those guys was, Thatcher Hurd, certainly a prize recruit coming out of high school, was really good on Saturday. And then yesterday, Luke Jewett, another freshman, was up to 93, 94 out of the bullpen. It was a limited outing, but I mean, the stuff was really good. And then Alonzo Treadwell yesterday was very good. Really good frame, kind of a big guy. Like I think he's 6'5". I want to say 230. He didn't have a fastball up to 95, but I mean it was low 90s. Really, really good pitchability, which is kind of a hallmark of a John Savage pitching staff. And so you look at those three freshmen, and then the job that Jake Brooks and Kelly Austin did. All of a sudden, I feel pretty good about UCLA's pitching staff. I think the other thing I liked about them as the weekend progressed was their offense. Kenny Oyama at the top of the lineup. He was a guy that had 16 stolen bases at LMU last year, already has 12. UCLA is really allowing him to put pressure on opposing teams. Cody Schreier looks mature beyond his years. He looked very good over the weekend. And then keep an eye on Carson Yates. Savage was telling me yesterday that he's a former high school quarterback who was just really raw. He's a crude. I like the way Savage put it. He said he was a crude athlete. He was just really raw. And he said now that he's gotten more at bats and he's got another fall under his belt, he's starting to figure things out. And I'll tell you what, guys, he's got big time power in the middle of that UCLA lineup. So, yeah, I'm actually really intrigued by UCLA. It's kind of funny. On Friday, I was kind of thinking, okay, other than Jake Brooks, I'm a little iffy on these guys, but I thought they played very well the last 2 days. So I want to see them put those kind of weeks together, but I'm feeling a lot better about UCLA right now than I definitely was about a week ago.
All right, so I have a question for you guys that's a segue into something. One of my favorite themes of the season so far is I feel like I don't know anything, right? Hey, I'm all excited about NC State. I'm a little down on Northeastern, and the Northeastern just trashes them in their own yard, right? So here's my question for you guys as we'll segue our way out of here. Who's going to finish this year with more home runs? Tommy Tanks, Tommy White, or our guy Brad Malm of the Albany Great Danes? Kendall?
Are we just already waving the white flag on beating Torkelson's record?
Yeah, I mean, I picked Tommy White, but I'm not feeling very good about it.
How about that? Hey, we really didn't talk about Northeastern very much, but how about the fighting Huskies, Mike Glavin's boys? Tommy Tanks went 1 for 12 over the weekend against those guys. I'll be interested to see, fellas. Northeastern's kind of given teams the blueprint for attacking Tommy White, and that series with Notre Dame is fascinating. How does Notre Dame attack Tommy White?
But I want to go back and just mention a little bit more about Northeastern rather than talking about Tommy White. I mean, he went 1 for 12 because they got real pitching. I mean, it's Schlittler, Sebastian Keene, and Wyatt Scotty. Those are all, all three guys were in the Cape last year, performed. They have track records now in the spring and summer. I mean, and they have stuff. Eric Yost in that bullpen's a really big arm, and they got a lot of really good arms. Dennis Colloran, a really exciting freshman. It's just there's a lot to like about this team. Mike Serrata in center field, I think, is a stud. Love Max Vieira. They're strong up the middle. I mean, there was some youth in this lineup heading into the season. That was kind of the question mark. We knew the pitching would be a factor, and we picked them to win the CAA because we believed in the pitching and there's a couple of key guys up the middle. But so they've hit enough now. I mean, they started slow. Let's get that out there because Bruce, you're right. We were down on them a little bit because they just lost the series to Marshall I guess they lost 2 games to Marshall last week in a tournament. But they were what, 4-5 or something. I mean, low start, but now we're starting to see them kind of come around and become the team we thought they would be. And now they get to go to Clemson, and all of a sudden that series is intriguing as well as NC State Notre Dame.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kendall. You go.
No, I was going to say, going back to the home run thing real quick, I was going to ask Garrett about this guy because, we talk about Brad Malm and Tommy White, but how about Derek Orndorff at Liberty? He's now the national leader at 10 homers.
No way.
Yeah, he has 10 homers now.
He's an interesting guy. He's a transfer, if I recall, from a small school. I can't remember where exactly, but I mean, it's a guy that they really were excited about when he came in the fall, but, you just never know how that you're going to make that adjustment to top competition. And I mean, they've played some teams, they won a series at Florida the first week. That's why they're ranked right there in the mid-teens, and they just keep on winning. A program though that you think about as a pitching and defense kind of a program. They've been kind of like Georgia in that respect. They haven't had a lot of firepower in their offense. They play in a very pitcher-friendly park, a really difficult place to hit home runs. Like I remember in the fall, it might have been Orndorff. They were one of their newcomers, hit a ball, and just crushed it out toward left center and was pimping it, and it was caught on the track. And I heard one of the players in the dugout say, "Hey, welcome to Liberty,"
nice.
Because Welcome to Lynchburg, man. You know, you're not going to hit that ball out of here very often. So the fact that he's got 10 so far, that's pretty loud.
Yeah. And what's interesting is he has 11 walks and 7 strikeouts. So it's not like he's just going up there hacking away.
Those are like the Viking numbers right there. I will answer my own question. Give me Tommy Tex. I'm going to say something extreme though. You know, and I do believe this in my heart of hearts. On the front end, at least, because I think you need velocity to beat Tommy Tex. I think anything soft up and away, he's hammering because he's showing that he'll hit the ball. If I'm pitching to Tommy Tanks, I'm trying to run fastballs in and speed him up and get him thinking about that. And Northeastern has the arms to do that. I don't know that Notre Dame does on the front end. You know, Notre Dame's got their velocities in the back end, but Aiden Tyrell, John Michael Bertrand, Tyrell is not a super hard thrower by any stretch. I mean, he's more like in the thumber category. Bertrand, it's a little bit more velocity, but it's not like those Northeastern kids who can, those kids, those are, low to mid 90 arms. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Go ahead, KR.
Runes, I have homework for you. So John Miller, the head coach at Albany, was telling me that Brad Mom does not have a nickname. So your homework this week is to get a nickname for Brad Mom.
All right, I'm on it because I love him. 5th-year senior. I'm all about the 5th-year seniors. All right, Brad Mom's getting a nickname this week. That is done and done.
Brad Moms.
Yeah, I was going to say Mom Bomb or something like that, but let's see if we can incorporate Great Dane in there too. That's like one of the best mascots nationally.
Mascot.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, incredible animals. Boys, where are you going to be this week? What do we know our plans this week?
I've got an ACC extravaganza this weekend. I'm gonna have a hard time deciding where I'm gonna be. Notre Dame, NC State. I've got Virginia's at Duke and Florida State's at Wake. I mean, how the heck am I gonna figure this out? We got 3 really good ones here on Tobacco Road.
KR, where are you headed?
Unless I'm teleporting to the Triangle, I will be watching games on the big screen here at the house.
The Command Center, I like it.
That's a better way to put it.
Yes, before the Elgato Command Center, I'm literally operating that tonight. I did have Cal Florida State last Friday, by the way, boys, and it was a great game. Heck of a game. Josh White pitched his brains out. Parker Messick's everything we think. It was awesome. Poor Keyshawn Ogans, the shortstop for Cal, hits a home run, forgets to touch home plate. That's the difference in the game. Our boy Alex Terrell hits a jack. It was super exciting. It was like it felt like a postseason game. And then this week I've got on Friday I do have NC State against Notre Dame, so really fired up for that. JT Garrett might not play, which is such a bummer. I talked to Elliot Avent today, and he tried to do a really cool thing. And this is so Elliot Avent. He called the ACC in the preseason and said, "Look, is there any way we could play? We're playing Notre Dame at home this year. Is there any way we could play him the last weekend of the season when it's senior day? Like, how cool would it be for JT Jarrett's last game at NC State to be with his dad in the other dugout? But the ACC put him first weekend, so I guess it is what it is. Scheduling.
Thanks a lot, Swafford.
Yeah, he's missed right. He's missed the last 4 games.
Yeah, and if you look at their numbers, boys, I mean, they were an elite defensive team last year, like 980 plus. They're like in the 960s right now, and Elliott said we're missing him bad. Like, we don't know where to throw the ball. Like, it's like we're a headless horseman right now. We're playing without a quarterback, and so I got it.
It's incredible the impact that kid has, man. Like, he was putting up numbers this year too.
Yeah,
like, that's what you ever would have expected from him. He was a defense guy and an intangibles guy, but like, boy, the intangibles. I mean, when you got a field general like that guy, I mean, if you just talk to any coach of the ACC, where they rave about him, it's incredible. I mean, he's just such a heady player. So you're right. That's key.
Yep. Dan Hill in the chat, best Command Center package. Yeah, ESPN Plus. Now, again, I work for the worldwide leader, so this is biased, but I mean, it's the best $7 a month you're going to spend in the college baseball season. They're putting so many games on there. They're going to start to do some red zone stuff on there in May, which is going to be super fun. So anyway, yeah, it's getting real this weekend, boys. We get conference play starting just when that's the whole theme. This season, this college baseball season is kind of like one of those comedic horror movies where it's like so off the wall, like it can't even be real. Like, it's just when you think it's safe to come outside, it's not safe to come outside. Just when you think you know something in college baseball right now, you know nothing. That's how I feel.
To me, the ultimate is like Bryant goes and sweeps East Carolina the first weekend, and then they've been swept in back-to-back series since then. And like, and then you got, Long Beach goes to Mississippi State. They're the hot thing. And then, they've kind of fallen. They had lost 6 in a row. They got swept by Sacramento State, and then Sacramento State's the hot thing, and they're in the rankings. And then they lose 3 out of 4 to Houston Baptist. It's just like, even the upstart darlings, they're getting upset all of a sudden. It's just like round and round we go. It's wild.
It's a hot potato. It's a jinx hot potato. So Mississippi State wins the national title, and they're holding the jinx hot potato. They hand it off to Long Beach State, who hands it off to Sac State, who then now is handed like who's getting swept this weekend? Houston Baptist. Yes. What is their nickname? The Wildcats, their dogs, Huskies. That's right. They're Huskies.
They're the Huskies. The Huskies are very native to Texas. So.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. It's like our boy David Seifert's JC, the Parkland College Cobras, because we know that Cobras really, they either like to live in Africa or Central Illinois. That's where Cobras spend most of their time. So even better.
Aren't Cobras like more big in like India and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's right. Asia, Africa, wherever. Yeah, not Central Illinois. How about that?
Central Asia and Central Illinois. That's where you can find Cobra.
That's right. That's the Cobra population. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure to see your lovely faces. We are going. So we'll be back Thursday to do our weekly picks and talk right before the series kickoff. That's been fun to do. And that's it. We encourage everyone, get on the site. Hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the D1 page, I believe is the lingo. That's really helpful if you subscribe. That's how we get evaluated. And that is it. Everybody have a great week. And